something. Always something. There we go. Pop that over there. Get my restream chat up. There we go. Nothing like the music of our ancient world, nor was it what I might conceive to be the music of our future. A thing apart, unworldly, ethereal. It swept me, carried me off. It was an exaltation of the spirit lifting me. It was triumphant now. It surged, but there was in its rhythm the beat of its every instrument, nothing but the soul of purity. And then it shimmered into distance again, faint and exquisite music of a dream. Crooning, pleading, the speech of whispering angel. It ceased. There was a storm of applause. I breathed again. Why, this was what music might be in our world, but was not. I thought of our blaring jazz. Hope said, now they can play the physical music. Then Sensua will dance with Blanca. We will see then which one the king chooses. On the stage, all the torches were extinguished, save those which were red. The arena was darker than before. The stage was bathed with a deep crimson. Music of the physical senses. It was indeed no more like the other choir than is the body to the spirit. There were stringed instruments playing now, deep-toned, singing zithers, and instruments of rounded, swelling bodies like great viols with sensuous, throbbing voices. It's supposed to be a viol, a musical instrument of the Renaissance and Baroque periods, typically six-stringed, held vertically, and played with a bow. Okay. So kind of like a cello. Like great viols with sensuous, throbbing voices. Music with a swift rhythm, marked by the thump of hollow gourds. It rose with its voluptuous swell into a paean of abandonment, and upon the tide of it, the crimson Sensua flung herself upon the stage. She stood motionless for a moment, that all might regard her. The crimson torchlight bathed her, stained crimson the white flush of her limbs, her heavy shoulders, her full, rounded throat. A woman in her late 20s. Voluptuous of figure, with crimson veils half hiding, half revealing it. A face of coarse, sensuous beauty. A face wholly evil, and it seemed to me wholly debauched. Dark eyes with beaded lashes, heavy lips painted scarlet. A pagan woman of the streets. One might have encountered such a woman swaggering in some ancient street of some ancient city, flaunting the finery given her by a rich and profligate Eastern prince. She stood a moment with smoldering, passion-filled eyes, gazing from beneath her lowered lids. Her glance went to the king's canopy and flashed a look of confidence, of triumph. The king answered it with a smile. He leaned forward over his railing, watching her intently. With the surge of the music, she moved into her dance. Slowly she began, quite slowly. A posturing and swaying of hips, like a nautch girl. What's a nautch girl? A traditional dance performed by professional dancing girls. From Hindi, okay. Like a nautch girl. She made the rounds of the musicians, leering at them. She stood in the whirl of the music, almost ignoring it, stood at the front of the stage with a gaze of slumberous, insolent passion flung at the king. A knife was in her hand now. She held it aloft. The red torchlight caught its naked blade. With shuddering fancy, I seemed to see it dripping crimson. She frowned and struck it at a phantom lover. She backed away. She stooped and knelt. She knelt and seemed, with her empty arms, to be caressing a murdered lover's head. She kissed him, rained upon his dead lips her macabre kisses. So there, Fort God, good morning, good morning. And then she was up on her bare feet, again circling the stage. Her anklets clanked as she moved with the tread of a tigress. The musicians shrank from her waving blade. A girl in white veils was suddenly disclosed, standing at the back of the stage. Derek whispered, "Is that Blanca?" "Yes," whispered Hope. Blanca stood, watching her rival. The crimson censor passed her, took her suddenly by the wrist, drew her forward. For an instant I thought it might have been rehearsed. I saw Blanca as a slim, gentle girl in white, with a white headdress, a dancer who could symbolize purity, now in the grip of red passion. An instant, and then horror struck us, and I could feel it surge over the audience, a gasp of horror. The frightened girl in white tried to escape. The musicians wavered and broke. I stared, stricken with freezing blood. Upon the stage, the knife went swiftly up. It came down, then up again. The red censor stood gloating. The knife she waved aloft was truly dripping crimson now. With a choked, gasping scream, the white girl of the toilers crumpled and fell. She lay motionless at the feet of the crimson murderess. Oh, there we go. That's that. That dance escalated quickly. All righty. Chapter 8. Why, this is treason. There was a gasp. The audience sat frozen. On the stage, with no one lifting a hand to stop her, the crimson murderess made a leap and vanished. A moment, and then the spell broke. A girl in the audience screamed. Someone moved to stand up and overturned a seat with a crash. The amphitheater under the canopy broke into a pandemonium. Screams and shouts, crashing of seats, screaming, frightened people struggling to get out of the darkness. The torches on the stage were dropped and extinguished. The darkness leaped upon us. Derek and I were gripping Hope. We were struck by a bench flung backward from it. People were rushing at us. We were swept along in the panic of the crowd. I heard Derek shout, "We must keep together." We fought, but we were swept backward. We found ourselves outside the canopy. Torchlight was here. It glimmered on the pool of water. People were everywhere, rushing past us, some one way, some another, aimless, with the shock of terror upon them. Under the canopy, they were still screaming. I was momentarily separated from Derek and Hope. I very nearly stumbled into the pool. A girl was here, crouched on the stone bank. Her wet crimson veils clung to her white body. Her long, wet hair lay on her. I stumbled against her. She raised her face, eyes wide with terror, mute, painted red lips. I heard Derek calling again, "Charlie!" I shoved my way back to him. The crowd was thinning out around us. Girls were climbing from the pool, rushing off in terror to mingle with the milling throng. Among the crowd now, down by the edge of the bay, I saw the sinister figures of men come running, the toilers miraculously appearing everywhere. I saw, across the pool, a terrified girl crouching. A huge man in a black cloak came leaping. The colored lights in the trees glittered on his upraised knife blade as it descended. The girl fell with a shuddering scream. The murderer turned and whirled away into the crowd. "Charlie!" I was back with Derek and Hope. Hope stood trembling with her hand pressed against her mouth. Derek gripped me. "That cloak! Get it off!" He ripped, that's me telling him. "That cloak! Get it off!" He ripped his crimson cloak from him and tossed it away. He jerked mine off. "Too dangerous. That's the crimson badge of death tonight." We stood revealed in the clothes of our own world. My business suit, in which that day I had worked in Wall Street. Derek in his swagger uniform. He stood drawn to his full height, a powerful figure. "Hey there, Lady Death, what's going on? Lady Death's with us. Mythical Pearl is with us. How's Mythical Pearl doing today?" I hope Mother's Day has been successful. Yeah, celebrating. Sometimes remembering. Yeah, we've all got one. Alrighty. You made it for Short Story Sunday, indeed. So yeah, this is part 2 of something that we started last week. Yeah, so yeah, it's starting to get exciting. We're doing good, Mythical Pearl. I'll catch up with chat in between chapters. Derek in his swagger uniform. He stood drawn to his full height, a powerful figure. The wires of our mechanism showed at his wrists. They dangled at the back of his neck, mounting to that strangely fashioned electrode clamped to his head. Strange, awe-inspiring figure of a man. We were momentarily alone under the colored lights of the trees. Hope murmured, "But they will see us, see you." Derek's face was grim, but at her words he laughed harshly. "See us? What matter?" He swung on me. "It forces our hand. We've got to come out in the open now. This murder, this king. My God, what a fool to let himself get into such a condition as this. His people, this chaos. What a fool." He had drawn his dirk. I realized that I was holding mine. Near us, the body of a crimson noble was lying under a tree. A sword was there on the ground. Derek sprang for it, waved it aloft. I think that no more than a minute or 2 had passed since the murder. Down by the water, the boats were hastily loading and leaving the dock. One of them overturned. There were screams everywhere. Red forms lay inert upon the ground where they had been trampled or stabbed, but the prowling figures of the toilers now seemed to have vanished. Derek gestured. "Look at that palace, the garden." Beyond the canopy, I could see the dim gardens surrounding the palace. I glimpsed the high fence and the gateway in front. A mob of toilers was there. The guard at the gate had fled. The mob was surging through. Men and women in the vivid garments of the field, armed with sticks and clubs and stones, and the implements of agriculture. They milled at the gate, rushed through, scattered over the garden. Their shouts floated back to us in a blended murmur. We were standing only a dozen feet from the edge of the pavilion. No one seemed yet to have noticed us. A few straggling lights had come on under the canopy. I could see the dead lying there in the wreckage of overturned seats. Derek said, "We can't help it. It's done. Look at them. They're attacking the palace." This mob springing miraculously into existence, I realized that the toilers had planned that if Censua were chosen, they would attack the festival. The murder of Blanca had come as big a surprise as to them as to us. "Oh, come on. Can you get into the palace, Hope? The king must have gotten back there. Get your wits, girl." Derek stood, gripping her, shaking her. You know, I don't think the girl is the one who's panicking right there. "Get your wits, girl." Derek stood, gripping her, shaking her. "Get your wits." Yes, there's an underground passage. He probably went that way." From the palace gardens, the shouts of the mob sounded louder now, and from within the building there was an alarm bell tumultuously clanging. Hope gasped, "This way." She led us back into the pavilion. We clambered over its broken seats, past its gruesome, huddled figures. Some were still moving. We went to a small door under the platform. A dim room was here, deserted now. Against the wall was a large wardrobe closet. Stage costumes were hanging in it. The closet was fully 20 feet deep. We pushed our way through the hanging garments. Hope fumbled at the blank board wall in the rear. Her groping fingers found a secret panel. A door swung aside, and a rush of dank, cool air came at us. The dark outlines of a tunnel stretched ahead. I bet this tunnel goes to Narnia. So, Dharma Boy, hello, what's up? Yeah. And Mr. Quinn, good to see you, my friend. In, Charlie. I crouched and stepped through the door. Hope closed it behind us. The tunnel passage was black, but soon we began to see its vague outlines. Derek, sword in hand, led us. I clutched my dirk. We went perhaps 500 feet. Down at first, then up again. I figured we were under the palace gardens now, as the tunnel was winding to the left. There were occasional small lights. Derek whispered to Hope, "The toilers don't know of this." "No." "Where does it bring us out?" "Oh, where does it bring us out?" I whispered. "Into the lower floor of the castle. The king must have gone this way. There might be a guard, Derek. What will you do?" He laughed. "Oh, I can handle this mob. Disperse it, you'll see, and handle the king." He laughed again grimly. "There is no Blanca to choose now." The tunnel went round a sharp angle and began steeply ascending. Derek stopped. "How much further, Hope?" "Not far," she whispered. We crept forward. The tunnel was more like a small corridor now. Beyond Derek's crouching figure, in the dimness, I could see a doorway. Derek turned and gestured to us to keep back. A palace guard was standing there. His pike went up. "Who are you?" "A friend." But the man lunged with his pike. Derek leaped aside. His sword flashed. The flat of it struck the fellow in the face. Derek, with incredible swiftness, was upon him. They went down together, and before the man could shout, Derek had struck him on the head with the sword hilt. The guard lay motionless. Derek climbed up as we ran forward to join him. Not bad for a for like some scientist, some like a little nerdy scientist there. He seems to be pretty handy in a fist fight. I noticed now, for the first time, that in his left hand Derek held a small metal cylinder. A weapon, strange to me, which he had brought with him. He had not mentioned it. He had produced it when menaced by this guard. Then he evidently decided not to use it. He shoved it back in his pocket. He whirled on us, panting, "Hurry, close that door." We closed the door of the tunnel. "Charlie, help me move him." We dragged the prostrate figure of the unconscious guard aside into the shadow of the wall. We were in a lower room of the palace. It seemed momentarily unoccupied. Overhead we could hear the sounds of running people, a confusion in the palace, and outside in the garden the shouts of the menacing throng of toilers, and above it all the wild clanging of the alarm bell from the palace tower. Okay, I just need a second to change a setting here on my mic. Where's it at? That's not the one. Yeah, I got my, let's change that to minus 35. And that one to, there we go. That should be fine, about 30. Okay. Oh boy, so far so good. We're still with it. What do you mean, but you know what women are like with their humors? I don't know, Skip. I don't know. All right. Okay. I'm Dank420, throwing down some book club love. I thank you, sir. Thank you. Derek said swiftly, "Get us to the king." Hope led us through the castle corridors and up a flight of steps to the main floor. The rooms here were thronged with terrified people, crimson nobles and their bedraggled finery of the festival. In all the chaos, no one seemed to notice us. Hey, SoCal Aussie. I hope you enjoyed your temporary moment of triumph yesterday. I am back to being the king. Thank you very much. Taking my crown back. From SoCal Aussie and Chris Alberti. Hope led us through the castle corridors and up a flight of steps to the main floor. The rooms here were thronged with terrified people, crimson nobles and their bedraggled finery of the festival. In all the chaos, no one seemed to notice us. We mounted another staircase. We found a vacant room. Through its windows we looked a moment, gazing into the garden. It was jammed with a menacing mob, which milled about, leaderless, waving crude weapons, shouting imprecations at the palace. At the foot of the main steps, the throng stood packed, but none dared to mount. A group of the palace guards stood on the platform over the moat. Derek turned away impatiently. "Let's get to the king." We mounted to the upper story. The castle occupants stared at Derek and me as we passed them. A group of girls at the head of the staircase fled before us. "The king!" Derek demanded. "Which is his apartment? Hurry! Hope! We've got no time now." So the king lives in an apartment. We found the frightened king seated on a couch with his counselors around him. It was a small room in this top story of the castle, with long windows to the floor. I saw that they gave onto a balcony which overlooked the gardens. There were perhaps 20 or 30 people huddled in the room. A confusion existed here, as everyone else, no one knowing what to do in this crisis. And that cursed alarm bell wildly adding to the turmoil. We paused at the doorway. "Now," whispered Derek. He drew himself to his full height. His eyes were flashing. It was a Derek I had not seen before. He wore an air of mastery, as though he, and not the frightened, trembling monarch on the couch, were master here. And as I stared at him that instant in this primitive, chaotic environment, the power of him swept me. A conqueror, the strange electrode clamped to his head gave him an aspect miraculous, awe-inspiring. He strode forward, across the apartment. The king was just giving some futile, vague command to be transmitted to his guards down below. A hush fell over the room at our appearance. The king half stood up, then sank back. Skip Donahue one, interesting. Who? I saw Robar here. His long crimson cloak hung from his shoulders with its hood thrown back. Beneath it, as it parted in front, his leather uniform was visible. A sword was strapped to his waist. He was striding back and forth with folded arms, frowning, but his gaze was very keen. Robar was not frightened. He seemed rather to be gauging the situation, pondering how he might turn it to his own ends. He stopped short and swung about to face us. His jaw dropped with surprise, amazement at our strangeness. Derek confronted him. His bulk and huge weight towered even over Derek. The king gasped and sat helplessly, staring. Robar spoke first. "Who are you?" "This mob must be dispersed. Don't stand looking at me like that, man." Derek spoke in friendly fashion, but vehemently. "This is no time for explanations." "I think it is." They were menacing each other. Robar's heavy hand fell to his sword, but Derek boldly pushed him away. He faced the king. "Your Majesty." The king stared blankly at him. The title was no doubt strange to this realm, but no stranger than Derek's aspect. "Your Majesty." But the noise from the garden, the confusion which now broke out in the room, and that damnable clattering bell drowned his words. The king found his voice. "Be quiet, all of you." He was on his feet. He demanded of Derek again, "Who are you?" Derek said swiftly, "I'll show you. I can disperse this mob. Charlie, come." It seemed as though the gaze of everyone in the room went to me. I drew myself up and flashed defiance back at them. And I followed Derek to one of the balcony windows. He went through it with me after him. I stood at the threshold, watchful of the room behind us. Robar was standing aside, and I saw now the woman, Sensua, with him. They were whispering, staring at me and Derek. I had been wondering why, when Sensua must have known that the king would choose her, why she had dared to murder her rival. I thought now, as I saw her with Robar, that I could guess the reason. She loved Robar, not the king. Robar was plotting to put himself on the throne, using Sensua as a lover to that end. He had doubtless persuaded her to this murder, knowing it would arouse the toilers, precipitate this chaos, which was what he wanted. Scheming scoundrel. I could not forget the look of desire on his face as he accosted Hope. And now Derek appeared to add an unknown element to Robar's plans. There was no way he could guess who or what we were. I saw that he was puzzled, was whispering to Sensua about us, doubtless wondering how to handle us. I saw, too, that there were half a dozen crimson-cloaked men here who were not frightened. They had gathered in a group. They stood with hands upon their swords, eyeing me and watching Robar, as though, at a sign from him, they would rush me. On the balcony, Derek stood with the light from the room upon him. The crowd saw him. The main gateway of the palace was just under his balcony. The crowd had now started up the steps to where the guards were standing at the top. At the sight of Derek, the mob let out a roar, and those on the steps retreated down again. Derek stood on the balcony rail, silent, with upraised arms, gazing down upon the menacing throng. There was a moment of startled silence as he appeared. Then the shout broke out louder than before. The crowd was milling and pushing, but still leaderless. An aimless activity. Someone threw a stone. It came hurtling up. It missed Derek and struck the castle wall, falling almost at my feet. Not a shuffle. Ooh, Lord. Derek did not move. He stood calmly, gazing down, stood like an orator, waiting for the confusion to die before he would speak. From the platform, just beneath Derek, the guards were staring wonderingly up, awed, startled. To the right, a wing of the building turned an angle. The castle tower was there. It rose perhaps 100 feet higher than our balcony. On the railed platform balcony, girding its top, I saw the figures of other guards standing, gazing down at Derek. The clanging bell up there was suddenly stilled. I became aware of the king, close behind me. His voice rang out. "What are you doing? How dare you?" Derek whirled. "You fool! To what a pass you have come! Your people in arms against you!" His violent words brought the king's anger. "How dare you? This is treason." I stood alert with my hand upon my dirk. There would be conflict here. I felt that we could not hold it off more than a moment longer. My mind leaped to that metal cylinder Derek had concealed. A weapon. Then why did he not have it out now? His eyes were flashing. The aspect of power, of confidence, upon him was unmistakable. It heartened me. I took a step toward him. He smiled faintly. "Wait, Charlie." The king gasped again. "How dare you? Why, this is treason. Robar, seize him." Hope was beside me, her eyes watching the room. Robar came striding forward. Derek rasped, "You perhaps have some sense. Lead His Majesty away. Take care of him until this is over." They stood with crossing glances, and upon Robar's face a look, queerly sinister, had come. A smile, sardonic. He said abruptly to the king, "I think we should let him have his way. What harm?" He gestured, and Sensua came forward, the crimson murderess. Her voluptuous figure was shrouded in a crimson cloak. Her heavy painted lips smiled at the king. Her rounded white arms went over his shoulders. Leonto, do as Robar says. Let this stranger try. It can do no harm." The king yielded to her. I watched as she and Robar urged him through an archway that gave into the adjoining apartment. No wonder Robar was sardonically smiling. Derek had played into his hand. We did not know it then, but we were soon to find it out. Okay. Let's catch up with chat here real fast. Okay. Oh, and I need to change our book title because that's wrong as well. And where's Chris Alberti? He's normally on top of the ball. Chris Alberti's normally like, "Hey, Carrington, the title's wrong." Let's go change it to this one here. Okay, so everyone's with the story so far? Yeah, I think we got it. This is Phantoms of Reality. 1, 2, 3, 4. Phantoms of Reality by Ray Cummings. Bloop. There we go. And just like that, we got all fixed. Yeah, we did. Dang says, is it nighttime in the UK? It's almost 11 p.m. at night in the UK. Yeah. Okay, very cool, very cool. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, we're making pretty good tracks through this. I think we'll finish it in a reasonable time. For those who are wondering what tonight's movie is, by the way, here it is. That's the link to it. That's what we're going to be watching, A Farewell to Arms, the 1932 version. 1932 with Gary Cooper and Helen Hayes. See how that one turns out. Looking forward to that. Should be pretty good. Let's see, who did I miss coming on in? I'm Dank420. You look so dope in the arena. You probably do. I bet you do. Yeah, we could do another one of those. Why not? Let's see. Oh, yeah, Wilden came in. Wilden, in the middle of that chapter. Hey, what's up? And SoCal Aussie came in. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, looks like the gang's all here. The gang's getting back together. Yes, they are. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, we got. We'll hop back in. Get another chapter read. Thank you in advance for any hosts that people are going to pop on down. And yeah, if you are enjoying the stream, there's somewhere on your screen there should be the share the stream. Yeah, I don't know if you're enjoying it, if you like it, if you like something this new. Well, it's not new. I've been doing this for 2 years. It might be new to you. If you're enjoying it, there you can let your friends know about it. There, just share the stream to Twitter or Facebook, and let your friends know the kinds of things that you enjoy on Mixer. Yeah, maybe they will like it too. Who knows? Who knows? There's Orgon. Orgon's back in the house. What's up, Orgon? Chapter 9. Alexandre. Derek turned back to the We're on a mission from God. That's a little Blues Brothers action. Derek turned back to the balcony. It had been a brief interlude. The mob in the garden, the soldiers at the top of the stairway, and the other guards high on the bridge of the tower were all standing, gazing. Shouts again rose as Derek appeared. Again he raised his arms. This time his voice rang out. "Silence, all of you! I'm a friend! Silence!" At first they did not heed him. Then someone shouted, "Quiet! Listen to him! Let him talk!" The crowd was bellowing, and then they ceased. The bell was still. In the hush came Derek's voice. "I'm a friend. I come from foreign lands, from distant lands of strange people and strange magic." For answer, the crowd shouted and milled in confusion. A stone came up, and then another. Derek stood immovable, like a statue, gazing down at them. "I command you to disperse." "You will not? Then look at me, all of you. My will is law beyond this king, beyond these palace soldiers, beyond any power you have ever known." Then I knew a part of Derek's purpose. He had pressed the mechanism at his wrist. He stood imperious with upraised arms. The garden was in a tumult, but in a moment it died. A wave of horror swept the crowd, a freezing, incredulous horror. They stood staring, incredulous, silent, swept with a widening wave of horror. It's up there, Banana Nightmare. The figure of Derek on the balcony was fading, turning luminous, a wraith, a ghost of his menacing shape standing there. It faded until it was almost gone, and then, as he reversed the mechanism, it materialized again. A moment passed, then he stood again solid before them. His voice rang out. "Will you obey me now? I'm a friend of the toilers." They were prostrate before him. There is no fear more terrible than the fear of the supernatural. In all of history, there has been in our world no worship more abject than the worship and fear of a primitive people for its supernatural God. On the platform beneath the balcony, the palace soldiers stared up, horrified. Then they too were prostrate before Derek's threatening gestures and commanding voice. I stood watching, listening, and suddenly from the prostrate crowd a man leaped up. In the silence his amazed voice carried over the garden. "Alexandre! It's our Prince Alexandre! Our long-lost prince!" He stood staring at Derek, his arms gesturing to his comrade around him. He shouted it again. "Our rightful king! Come back to us! Don't you recognize him? I saw him go. He went like that, fading into a ghost. 10 years ago, when Leonto killed his father, and would have killed him too had he not escaped." The crowd was standing up now. They recognized Derek. There was no doubt of it. The garden was ringing with the tumultuous shouts. "Alexandre, our lost prince has come back to us!" My head was whirling with it. Derek, prince of this realm. I could see that it was true. Escaped from here as a young lad when his throne was usurped, returning now, a man, to claim his own. And suddenly he turned and flashed me his smile. The din from the garden drowned his words. The crowd was shouting, "Alexandre, our lost prince!" The king's guards on the lower platform stood sullen, confused. I heard footsteps behind me. I whirled around. From the room, the group of Robar's crimson nobles were rushing toward me. Their swords were out. One of them shouted, "Kill them now! We must kill them and have done!" There were 5 or 6 men in the group. They were no more than 10 feet away from me. They came leaping. I stood in the window opening with only my dirk to oppose them. I shouted, "Derek! Derek!" I think I took a step backward. I was out on the balcony. It flashed over me. Derek and I were caught out here. The first of the red-cloaked figures came hurtling through the doorway. I leaped to avoid his sword. I saw the others crowding behind him. Then I felt Derek shove me violently aside. I half fell, but recovered myself at the balcony rail. 5 of the crimson nobles were on the balcony. Derek confronted them. His aspect made them pause. They stood with outstretched swords. The garden was silent. The crowd stared up. And in the silence, Derek roared, "Get back, all of you! Go back inside! Back, or I'll kill you!" Wow. In Derek's right hand, he held the cylinder outstretched, leveled at the menacing nobles. "Back, I say!" But instead, they rushed him. There was a flash. From the cylinder, it seemed that a ray spat out, a flash of silver light. It caught the 3 men who were in advance of the others. Their swords dropped with a clatter to the balcony floor. They stood transfixed. I just turned back on the Mix It Up overlay. Because I had to turn it off because Mix It Up, they broke it and then they did an emergency patch and fixed it. So yeah, but I hadn't got round to turning it back on. Yeah. An instant, Derek's silver ray played upon them. Their red cloaks were painted with its silver sheen. They were shimmering. I gasped, staring. The other nobles beyond the ray had fallen back, and they too stood staring in horror. Another instant, the 3 figures wavered. I saw the face of one of them, with the shock of incredulous horror still upon it. A face turning luminous, a face erased and with only the staring eyes to mark where it had been. There was a moment when the 3 stricken men stood like glimmering ghosts with Derek's deadly ray upon them. Then they were gone. It seemed just as they vanished that they were falling through the balcony floor. Derek snapped off his ray. He rasped, "Back into that room, I tell you." The remaining nobles fled before him. He turned again to the balcony rail. "My people, yes, I am Alexandre. I had not thought you would recognize me so soon. But you are right. The time has come for me to claim my inheritance, and I will rule you justly." His cylinder was still in his hand. He swept a watchful glance behind him. I thought of Robar. He was in the next room with the king. Had they seen this attack upon Derek? They must have heard the crowd shouting Alexandre. It seemed strange that they did not appear. I recall now, as I look back to this moment on the balcony, that I suddenly thought of Hope. She had been beside me just before the nobles attacked. I did not see her now. I was startled, but the thought of her was driven from my mind. From within the palace a scream sounded, a girl screaming. But it was not Hope's voice. A girl screaming and then shouting, "The king is dead!" Derek came rushing at me. "Charlie, that—" We heard it again. "The king is dead." We hurried into the adjoining room. There was no one to stop us, no one up here now who dared oppose Derek. The terrified nobles in the room fell cringing before him. "Alexandre, spare us! We're loyal to you!" He strode past them. In the adjacent apartment, we found the king lying upon the floor. A wound in his throat welled crimson. He had evidently been lying here alone, and had just now been found by a girl who had entered. He was not quite dead. Derek bent over him. He opened his eyes. He gasped faintly. "Robar killed me. Robar and that accursed crimson censor." His voice trailed away. The light went out of his staring eyes. Derek laid him gently back on the floor. And as though already the news of his death had miraculously spread, the bell in the castle tower began tolling. Not clanging now, tolling with slow, solemn accent. The crowd evidently recognized it. We could hear the shouts. "Death! Death has come!" Derek's eyes were blazing as he stood up. "At the end, Charlie. I would not have planned this, and yet—" He did not finish. He whirled, rushed back to the other room, and to the balcony. The scene was again in confusion, the crowd milling, voices shouting, "The king's dead!" And at the edge of the garden, a woman's shrill, hysterical laughter rose over the din. Derek called, "Yes, the king is dead." He paused. Then he added, "If you want to have me, if I have your loyalty, I will claim my throne." A tumult interrupted him. "Alexandre! King Alexandre!" He spread his arms, but he could not silence them. "The king is dead! Long live King Alexandre!" A wave of it swept over the garden, engulfing the castle. At the main entrance, Leonto's soldiers stood sullen, listening to it. Derek stood triumphant. His hands were outstretched, palms down, but up on the circular bridge at the top of the tower there was a sudden commotion. The soldiers up there had vanished, moved back within the tower to make room for other figures. I stared, amazed, transfixed. A huge man in leather garments was there, with a sword stuck in his wide belt. A man with a bullet head, a heavy face gazing down. Robar. And held in front of him the slender figure of a girl, Hope. He clutched her, his thick arm encircling her breast. With sinking heart I realized what had happened. Hope had moved away from me. Everyone in the room had been intent upon Derek. Robar had come quietly in, after murdering the king, had seized Hope, stifled her outcry, and taken her up into the tower. And I had promised Derek that I would shield this girl from harm. The horror of it, the self-condemnation of it, swept me, froze me to numbness. I could not think. I could only stand and share. Robar held Hope like a shield before him. The low railing hardly reached her knees. A sheer drop to the garden beneath. He held her tightly, and in his free hand I saw his dirk come up menacingly against her white throat. His voice called, "Silence down there! Alexandre, you traitor! Silence!" Morning, Tillable Cat. Derek stared up. The triumph faded from him. He stared stricken. The crowd stared. The soldiers on the lower platform ceased their shouting and gazed up at these new actors, come so unexpectedly upon the stage. Again Robar called, to the guards this time. "I represent your King Leonto. This Alexandre is a traitor to us all, and he cannot harm me. I defy him. Look at him. I defy him to use his evil weapon upon me." Derek was silent. A single adverse move and Robar's knife would stab into Hope's throat. Derek's ray was powerless. A flash from it would have killed Hope, not Robar. The king's soldiers saw Derek's indecision. One of them shouted, "He cannot harm us! Look, he's frightened!" The crowd recognized Hope. They began calling her name, and calling, "Master Robar, don't harm our Hope!" "I will not harm her, not if you do what I tell you. Leave the garden. Go quietly. I will deal with this traitor." He added to the guards, "Go up and seize him. He cannot hurt you. Traitor, seize him. If he does not yield, if any of this crowd attacks you, then I will kill Hope." Derek stood clinging to the balcony rail. With Robar's watchful gaze upon him, he did not dare turn or move. I was standing back from the balcony, behind Derek and partly in the room. No one thought of me. No one from outside could see me. And I, who had played no part in this, save that one I had neglected, suddenly saw my role. My cue was sounding, my role to play here, upon this tumultuous stage. I turned back into the dim room. A few frightened men and girls were here. They were all crowding forward, gazing through the windows at the scene outside. No one noticed me, but I saw with sudden realization my role to play. I darted across the room, out into the dim, deserted corridor of the castle. Ooh, okay, so he's putting everything into action right there. Putting it all into action. Alrighty. We got more people sneaking on in. Good morning, the Tillable Cat. Tyleable Cat. Oh yeah, so what happened is about a week ago, a Mix It Up bot that they had an update which ended up breaking. I'm sure you remember that night there where nothing on it would work and just weird stuff going on with the overlays. Anyway, so I ended up turning it off for a couple of days until Mix It Up bot got around to fixing it, and then in several other scenes here I haven't turned it back on. So that's what that's about. And is it working right now? I'm not sure. It's yeah, okay. Well, that one's going. One second. Let's take a little look. Yeah. Okay. All right. It is working again. Okay. Very good. Okay. Yeah, there's so many integrated third-party things there, and as soon as one of them makes a change, or Mixer might change the way its API works, or add new things in, then all the bots get broken until the bots fix it up, and yeah, just all of these things all trying to work together. If any one of them makes like a little change, yeah, man, oh man. Okay. Okay. Back in we go. Oh yeah, so we'll get back to our chapter in just a second. I just wanted to remind our friends over there. They might be on YouTube, they might be on Twitch, they might be on Periscope. Hello. Our main stream is over here on Mixer. Mixer.com/CarringtonTV, and our book reading sessions, I restream those live out to those other platforms. So yeah, and in the evenings we play games as well, video games, but I don't restream all of that. But if you want to come join us for some of that, we have a good time. Have a good time with it here on Mixer. Good time. So that's where we're at with that. Okay. Chapter 10. My role to play. How many chapters are there? There's 12 chapters. Okay. My role to play. I slipped like a shadow through the almost empty corridors. Down on the lower floor, I found that many of the soldiers were on the inside, standing about the corridors in groups, waiting for word from their comrades on the platform to indicate what action they should take. My time was short. I knew that within a few minutes they would be rushing up to overpower Derek. I stood unseen against the wall near the main entrance. I could not get outside. There were too many soldiers there. I tried to keep my sense of direction. The wing upon which the tower stood was about 200 feet from me here. If I could not get outside, I would have to try the inside along this corridor. I prayed that I might not make an error. I tried to gauge exactly where the tower would be. The hallway was almost dark, and in this wing there chanced to be no one at the moment. I came to the angle and turned it to the left. I was unarmed save my dirk. I drew it, but I encountered no one. I passed the doors of many empty rooms. The windows were all barred on this lower floor. I could hear the shouts of the crowd outside. I came at last to the end of the wing. A staircase here led upward. I guessed that I was directly under the tower now, and that this staircase undoubtedly led upward into it. I mounted a few steps to verify what I was sure would be the condition. It was as I thought. Robar had won over the soldiers who were here. He had sent them down from the tower bridge. They were guarding this staircase. I crept up another few steps, very cautiously. I could hear their voices on the stairs. A light was up there. I could see the legs of some of them as they crowded the stairs. I softly retreated. There was no way of getting up into the tower here. Alone and armed only with my dirk, I could not mount these stairs and assail a dozen armed men standing above me, especially when, if I raised an alarm, Robar overhead might be startled into killing hope. I stood another moment, thinking, planning my actions. I was trembling. Everything depended upon me now. I must get up into the tower. And above everything, haste was necessary. Hey there, Cross. How's Cross doing today? I retreated back to the lower floor. I was still some 20 feet above the ground, I judged. That was too far. A dozen paces along the hall, I saw a stairway leading downward into the ground-level cellar of the castle. I marked in my mind exactly in which direction I turned and how far. I went down the stairs. There was an empty lower room. It was pitch black. I lay down on its earthen floor. Above me, a few paces off to one side, I could visualize the tower. 150 feet above me, at least, up to that bridge balcony where Robar stood with hope. I kept my mind on it and prayed that I might not be making an error, a miscalculation. I prayed, too, that luck would be with me. A desperate chance, yet I thought I knew what was here or about here in New York City. I lay on my side, alone in the blackness, and pressed the switch at my wrist. The familiar sensation of the transition began. The darkness grew luminous. Around me, shadows were taking form. My body was humming, thrilling with the vibrations within it. I could feel the ground under me seeming to melt. My head was reeling. Nausea swept me, but with it all I tried to keep my wits. I must watch this new space into which I was going. Space? I prayed that here on this spot in New York City there would be empty space. If not, at the first warning I was prepared to stop my mechanism. The shadows grew around me. There was a moment or two when I felt as though I were floating, weightless, the sense of my body hovering in a void, intangible, imponderable, with only my struggling mentality holding it together. And then I felt myself materializing. Around me, walls were taking form. I floated down a foot or two and came to rest upon a new floor. My hand brushed it. My physical senses were returning. I could feel a floor of concrete. A vague, shimmering light was near me. It seemed to outline the rectangle of a window. All around was darkness, empty darkness, soundless, with only the throbbing hum of the mechanism. I was indoors, in a room. I felt suddenly almost normal, except for the whirring vibration. I flung the switch again. There was a shock, a whirling of my senses. Then I sat up, my head steadied, the nausea passed. And hello, Rose. What's up, Rose? I was back in my own world in New York City. This was night. I tried to calculate the time. Derek and I had departed about midnight. This would be, then, some time before dawn. I was in a cellar room, lying on its cement floor. There was a window with a faint light outside it, a window up near the ceiling. A straggling illumination showed me a bin, a few barrels, a door leading into another room, which looked as though it might be a machine shop. I sat up, calculating. I was 1,000 feet, perhaps, from the Battery wall, 200 feet from the Hudson River. This was an office building, and I was in one of its cellar rooms at the ground level. Near dawn, I tried to calculate what might be overhead. A deserted office building? Too early yet for the scrub women. The elevator would not be running. I laughed to myself. Of what use to me an elevator, if it had been running? How could I, a midnight prowler, appear from the cellar of this building and demand to be taken upstairs? There would be no elevator, but there would be watchmen. I would avoid them. I found a door. My heart leaped with a sudden fear that it would be locked, but it was not. I went through it into a passage and found the staircase. I made 2 turns. I tried to keep my mind on this space here. I stood carefully, thinking. I had it clear. I had made no move without careful thought. The tower with Robar was still to my left and about directly above me. I went up the short stone staircase, opened another door carefully. I was in the dim lower hall of the office building. I found myself beside the deserted elevator shaft. A light was burning on the night attendant's table in an alcove on the other side of the shaft. He sat there with his back to me. I closed the door soundlessly. The stairway upward beside the elevator was here. I watched my chance. I darted around the angle and went up. I met no one. The concrete staircase had a light at each floor. 4 floors up? No, not enough. I opened the 4th floor door. The marble hall of the office building was empty and silent. Rows of locked office doors with their gold leaf names and numbers. A single dim light to illumine the silent emptiness. I retreated into the staircase shaft and mounted higher. My dirk was in my hand. Charlie Wilson, the Wall Street brokerage clerk, prowling here. And upon what a strange adventure! I came to what I thought was the proper floor. In the hall I selected a room. The door was securely locked. I had no way of breaking the lock, but the panel was of opaque glass. I would have to chance the noise. I rushed the length of the hall to where a red fire axe hung in a bracket. I came back with it. I smashed the glass panel of the door. Would a watchman hear me? I did not wait to find out. With the axe I scraped away the splinters of glass. I climbed through the opening. My hand was cut, but I did not heed it. I was in a dim, silent office with rugs on the floor, desks standing about, filing cases, a water cooler, and a safe in the corner. I rushed to one of the windows. It looked over Battery Park and the upper bay. The stars were shining, but to the east, over Brooklyn, I could see them paling with the coming dawn. I gazed down to try and calculate my height. Yes, this would be about right. And my position. I could see the outline of the shore, the trees of Battery Park, the busy harbor, even at this hour before dawn, thronged with the moving lights of its boats. I saw all this with my eyes, but with my mind I saw the wrecked, deserted pavilion and the gardens of Leonto's castle. The threatening mob would be below me. The palace entrance would be here to my left, down in the streets where those taxis were parked. There was a commotion down there by the office building entrance. I know now what caused it, but at the time I did not notice. The wing of the castle was under me. This would be the tower. Its upper room or the balcony, just about where I was standing. I prayed that it might be so. I seemed, with my mind, to see it all. I lay down on the floor by the window. Out in the office building hallway I heard heavy footsteps come running. One of the night watchmen had evidently heard the glass crashed. I laughed. I pressed the switch at my wrist. Woo! Getting all sneaky, slipping between universes there. To kind of like, going in now. When he reappears, he's going to be several floors higher than where he was. Pretty sneaky. Pretty sneaky. Okay. So we're all doing well. Everyone's having an awesome Sunday, I hope. I know in some parts of the world it's already into the Monday. It's been a very busy weekend here, very busy weekend. Lots of things going on. Where are we at? And what is up with boy. Yeah, you know, I don't know why Mixer doesn't have some kind of yeah, I mean, someone needs to they need someone monitoring their front page. What's this? 1 second. Okay, there we go. All these AFK 24/7 things they're all creeping back in. They're creeping back in. Mixer needs to get on top of that. All right. There's yeah, but you know, I like a little jazz too, but I don't know. Yeah, everyone's starting to like miscategorize all their stuff to get onto the front page. And Mixer apparently doesn't monitor what's going on there, because there's always news to them. Always news to them when never mind, I'm not going to get started. Right. Blah, 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 blah. Rah, rah, rah. There we go. King Chris Alberti. That's right. King for a day. King for a day. Did pretty good. Beat me at my own tournament. My own Pac-Man tourney. Very good. Yeah, so yeah, if you guys see, you know, like AFK 24/7 stuff there showing up like in categories where they're not supposed to be, yeah, it's in a reporting. Just file it under other, and they will get moved. So yeah, you know, so then there's a place for AFK 24/7 content. You know, it's not inherently a bad thing, but the vast majority of categories here are for live content, and it makes yeah, it's just not good for live content creators when reruns and 24/7 there is hogging all the spots on the front page. Mixer earned that reputation. They had the reputation of being like an AFK 24/7 platform because all the categories were overrun with it. And it wasn't until some dude over on Twitch, who had like I don't know how a quarter, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people he had watching him at the time, came and checked it out and was just like blown away. Just like every channel he went into, like all the top rows full of AFK 24/7, or like a follow for follow farms, and it was that which I believe pushed Mixer to change it. Oh, Shadowtronics is here. What? Oh, that's Mrs. Shadowtronics. Did Mr. Shadowtronics hop on? I didn't see him hop on in. Anyway, okay, I'm just rambling a little. We should get on with it. Yeah. No, he's sleeping? Oh, okay, so that must have been a Mrs. Shadowtronics. Okay. Chapter 11. There we go. Okay, so he's gonna be popping back into his to his alternate New York. The fight on the tower balcony. The sensation swept me again. What? Chillable Cat says he gets to keep the crown for a week. What? I don't know about that. I don't know. I'm kind of jelly. On my crown. The fight on the tower balcony. The sense. Yeah. It's okay, Chris. Yeah. I mean, if he needs. If he needs his Z's, he needs his Z's. The fight on the tower balcony. King Shadowtronics. The sensations swept me again. The room faded. Whether the watchman came in to see a ghost of me lying there on the floor, I did not know, nor did I care. I whirled into the shadows, and came in a moment out of the black silence. The office room was gone. I seemed to have fallen or floated down. How far, I do not know. A triumph swept me. I was lying on another floor. I could see a doorway materializing. I was not upon the balcony, as I had calculated, but within the tower room. New walls sprang around me. I did not heed it, this time, the sensation of the transition. I was too alert to what new situation might come upon me. The tower room, I could see it. I could see its oval windows close at hand, the doorway to its balcony. Sounds flooded me, mingled with the humming within me. Familiar sounds, the crowd shouting, and in a single voice, the voice of Robar. Vague and blurred, but as I materialized, it became clearer. I was suddenly aware that there was a man beside me, one of the palace soldiers. He saw me materialize. He leaped backward in horror. I flung my switch. I was on my feet, swaying, and then I leaped upon him. My dirk plunged downward into his chest. The thing made me shudder. I reeled with the sickness of it, but as he fell, I clung to the dirk and ripped it out of him. It was dripping with his blood. I stood trembling. The small tower room had no other occupants. I turned toward the door. I could see a patch of stars paling with the coming dawn. I crouched in the small doorway which gave onto the balcony, staring, swiftly calculating. The scene had scarcely changed, but some of the soldiers had left the entrance platform, gone, no doubt, into the castle on their way upstairs to seize Derek. On this upper balcony, no more than 10 feet before me, Robar still stood, gripping Hope. She was in front of him. His back was to me. A sudden jump, and I could plunge my dagger into his back. Robar was shouting, King Leonto's dead. Oh, King Leonto's dead. If you should want me to succeed him, I will take this girl Hope for my queen. You all love her. I was tense to spring. Then out on the balcony to one side, I saw Sensua crouching. Her crimson robe fell away to bare her white limbs. Her hand fumbled in her robe. She had been Robar's dupe, and now she knew it. Her knife was in her hand. Frenzied with jealousy and rage, she sprang upon Robar's back, trying to stab at Hope. Perhaps he sensed her coming, heard her, or perhaps she was unskillful. Her knife only grazed Hope's shoulder. He released Hope. He roared. He turned and gripped his murderous assailant. A second or two while I stood watching. He caught Sensua's wrist, twisted the knife from it, and plunged the knife into her breast. She sank with a scream at his feet, and as he straightened, he saw me. But I had leaped. I was upon him. His own knife remained in Sensua's breast. As I raised mine in my leap, he caught at my wrist, twisted it, but I flung the knife away before he could get it. The knife fell over the balcony rail. The weight of my hurtling body flung him backward, but the rail caught him. His arms went around me, powerful arms, crushing me. I gripped at his throat. There was an instant when I thought that we would both topple over the railing. I felt Hope beside us. I heard her scream. We did not go over the rail, for Robar lurched and flung us back. We dropped to the balcony floor, rolling, locked together. He was far stronger and heavier than I. He came uppermost. He lunged and broke my hold upon his throat, but I was agile. I squirmed from under him. I almost regained my feet. He got up on one knee. He was trying to draw his sword. Then again I bore into him, kicking and tearing. He roared like a bull. And ignoring my plucking fingers, my flailing fists, he lunged to his feet, with me gripping again at his throat. His huge height swung me off the ground. I was aware that he had drawn his sword, but I was too close for him to use it. He swayed drunkenly with my weight. He was confused. I felt the rail behind us. We lunged again into it. Again I heard Hope scream in terror and saw her leap at us. Robar stooped, trying to clutch the low rail. His bending down brought my feet to the balcony floor. With a last despairing effort, I shoved him backward. And as he toppled at the rail, I fought to break his hold upon me. I felt us going, and then I felt Hope reach for me, her arms flung about my waist. Her hold tore me loose. Robar's huge body fell away. ... For an instant, Robar seemed balanced upon the rail. Then he went over. He gave a long, last agonized scream as he fell. I did not look down. I crouched by the rail. The crowd in the garden, Derek standing on the other balcony, the soldiers who had now appeared behind him, all were silent, and in the silence I heard the horrible thud of Robar's body as it struck. ... I clung to Hope for an instant, and she shuddered against me. The scene broke again into chaos. I cast Hope away and leaped up. I stood at the balcony rail. My arms went up and gestured to Derek. Amazement was on his face, but he answered my gesture. Behind him, the soldiers who had come to seize him were standing in a group, stricken at this new tragedy. Derek swung on them. He was not powerless now. "Away with you!" His cylinder menaced them, and they fell back in terror before him. He darted past them and disappeared into the castle. I felt Hope plucking at me. "I want to talk to the people." She stood beside me, leaning over the rail. Gentle little figure. Familiar figure to them all, their beloved Hope. Her voice rang out clearly through the hush. "My people, we all want our beloved Alexandre. He has come back to us. He is our rightful king." "King Alexandre! Long live King Alexandre!" Derek appeared in a moment behind us. "My God, Charlie, I can't understand." I told him how I had done it. He gripped me. "I'll never be able to repay you for this." I pushed him forward, and he joined Hope at the rail, held her, and her arms went around his neck as she returned his kisses. The crowd gaped, then cheered. I shouted, "Hope will be your queen. The reign of the Crimson Nobles is at an end." The wild cheering of the people, in which now the castle guards were joining, surged up to mingle with my words. Yeah. Final chapter, last chapter coming up. It has been pretty good so far, pretty good. Alrighty. So I think King Chris Alberti there thinks he gets to keep the crown for like what, a full week. I don't know, man. I don't know. Alrighty. Yeah. Okay. Did I miss anything in chat? I'm not sure. Let me just quickly scroll up through that. The shadowy hand of the king. Indeed. All right. Well, okay. Oh, I don't think I missed anything. Don't think I missed it. What? This is terrible. 2 weeks. Who's making up all these rules anyway? I don't know. I was kind of like 24 hours. 24 hours seems like a decent time. Oh, and because he is sharing it. You're making them up. All right. Yeah. So let's see. He is sharing the crown though, because it was both SoCal Aussie and Chris Alberti. Both of them smacked me down in my own game. Things like that have never happened before. Okay, let's wow, I don't know. Yeah, I just got a Twitter notification that yeah, the way I have it set up on my yeah, the way I have it set up, yeah, I use a plugin for which shows Twitter as how it used to look, which is when it was useful, because you could actually like read stuff in the order that it goes out instead of the algorithms telling you what it is you want to read, because I hate that. Yeah, and there's the big notice posted at the top of the Twitter page says it knows that I'm using the plugin. It says this is the legacy version of Twitter. We'll be shutting it down on June 1st. Please switch to a supported browser or disable this extension. So I'm like, I don't know. A new challenge needs to be made. Maybe we can see what's going on. Let's see, where are we at? Oh boy. Yeah. I like that pic that the SoCal Aussie put in reply. Yeah, you got the Bugs Bunny being the champion. All right, okay. All right, okay, we'll get back into our thing in just a minute. The king needs to be the land of the three kings. What? I don't know. Let's see if they got rid of it. No, it's still there. All these AFK 24/7 things, they're creeping back in on the front page of Mixer, no less. All right, okay, let's get on with it. Chapter 12, One Tumultuous Night. I come now with very little more to record. Okay, one second. Oh, sometimes you just get a little tongue-tied there. So many words, and sometimes you just stumble over stuff. What's up there, Chris John? How you doing? How you doing, Chris John? We're just finishing up a little bit of book club. About another 30 minutes of book reading to go. Oh yeah, actually, this would be the plan, by the way. Yeah, we've got another 30 minutes of book reading to go. Then I take a bit of a break for about 2 hours. Come back 6 p.m. Pacific. Is it 6 p.m.? Is it 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for movie night? Yeah, and tonight's movie is this one right here, the 1932 version of A Farewell to Arms, with Gary Cooper and Helen Hayes. It's the Ernest Hemingway story, A Farewell to Arms. Except that Patakev was shaken. Okay, but let's do it. Let's get into our final chapter of Phantoms of Reality. One Tumultuous Night. I come now with very little more to record. I returned to my own world, and Derek stayed in his. Each to his own. One may rail at this allotted portion, but he does not lightly give it up. The scientists who have examined the mechanism with which I returned were very naturally skeptical of me. Derek featured a further communication between his world and mine. No, Derek feared a further communication between his world and mine. He smiled his quiet smile. Your modern world is very aggressive, Charlie. I would not want to chance having my mechanism duplicated. A conquering army coming in here. And so he adjusted the apparatus to carry me back and then go dead. I have wires and electrodes to show in support of my narrative, but since they will not operate, I cannot blame my hearers for smiling in derision. And yet there is some contributing evidence. Derek Mason has vanished. A watchman in an office building near Battery Park reports that at dawn of that June morning he heard splintering glass. He found the office door with its broken panel and the axe lying on the hall floor. He even thinks he saw a ghost stretched out by the window, but he is laughed at for saying it. And there is still another circumstance. If you will trouble to examine the newspaper files of that time, you will find an occurrence headed Inexplicable Tragedy at Battery Park. You will read that near dawn, that morning, the bodies of 3 men in crimson cloaks came hurtling down through the air and fell in the street, near where several taxis were parked. Strange, unidentified men, of extraordinary aspect. The flesh burned, perhaps. All 3 were dead. The bodies were mangled by falling some considerable height. An inexplicable tragedy. Why should anyone believe that they were the 3 crimson nobles whom Derek attacked with his strange ray? I am only Charles Wilson, clerk in a Wall Street brokerage office. If you met me, you would find me a very average, prosaic sort of fellow. You would never think that deeds of daring were in my line at all. Yet I have lived this one strange, tumultuous night, and I shall always cherish the memory. Oh, that's it. Well, that was a very short ending chapter. That was 2 pages. All right. Well, that was really short. Anyway, okay, so that was Phantoms of Reality by Ray Cummings. All right, not too shabby. I liked it. I mean, it was very sloppy. Good pulpy sci-fi. It was like Edgar Rice Burroughs kind of into the adventure we go kind of thing. Yeah, it was a fun read. Yeah. Which reminds me, let's see, what was what was the name of it? Then, Oh, is that late? Huh. At the official site. That's published in 1939. Okay, so we're not doing that. Okay, 1 second. What's her bibliography? Book series in order. Yeah, I'm just trying to find the, Oh, no. Okay, there's nothing for like another couple of years. Oh, no, that's just the Hercule Poirot ones. Let me see. Oh, public collections. Poirot investigates. The Vicarage. Yeah, so I want to do a standalone novel. Yeah, I want to do. Yeah, we have a brand new novel starting tomorrow. I think I wanted to do some like Edgar Rice Burroughs or some kind of Flash Gordon-y kind of thing. But having read this over the past 2 weeks on Sunday, I think I think what we're going to do is just do. I wanted to do some Agatha Christie. So I don't know which one is going to be. I need to pick one quickly. But yeah, there are several to pick from that have been published in 1924 or earlier. Most of his stuff is after that time, obviously. We'll get to that. If we're still doing this in 10 years' time. Yeah, we'll have access to like a whole bunch more of her books. But for right now, yeah, right now, if it's in the only the stuff from 1924 and earlier is in the public domain. There's still several titles we can pick from. I'll get one ready for tomorrow. I just need a little more time to. Yeah, I just thought right now that's what we should do, and then after that. And then that'll take like a week, maybe 6 days to get through. After that, we're going to read Wuthering Heights. That's the order that we're doing things in for the main book club on the Monday through Thursday one. Alrighty, so we still got a bit of time left. We got some time to read some short stories. Let's just change our thing here real fast. 1 second. Bloop. It's got to change this. Let's see. What do we got? Take a little look at. I don't know what to read. We could hop into that fairy tale thing there, give one of those things a try. There's like, I don't know how many. Things like, well, actually the title of this book is 1,500 Eternal Masterpieces of Fairy Tales. 1,000, there's got to be something in here. Andrew Lang, who's Andrew Lang? Scottish dude. The Bronze Ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 23. Okay, let's do that. All right. 23 pages, a little longer than we should do, but we'll give it a try. Who's this dude? What's this dude's name? It is... Good Lord, this dude wrote a lot. Andrew Lang. Charles Perrault. Oh, this guy, okay, he's done, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20. Bluebeard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that a... Okay, we'll try this one. Oh, and something which I've been thinking about. I mean, we've never read a book twice. I've been considering redoing. I think it was the very first one I did. I'm pretty sure it was Treasure Island. But he's written some other good books too. But I don't know, a bit of a pirate. This is Bluebeard, and who's this dude? This dude is Charles Perrault, Bluebeard. Okay. B-L-U-E Beard, Bluebeard, by Charles Perrault. There we go, updating our thing. Here we go. We'll try this. Then this should bring us to the top of the hour. Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman is good. Okay. Yeah, we can do some Neil Gaiman. I just did there, Chris. Thank you. Oh, actually, I spelled it wrong, though. It's actually two words. It's not... Okay, blue space beard. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we can do some Neil Gaiman. Not today, I have to get ready for it. But yeah, Neil Gaiman is very generous with his writing right now. Okay, so you guys ready for this? Just a little, I think this is like about 10 pages. 10 pages, which should bring us to the top of the hour, probably. Yeah. Let's do it. Once upon a time, there was a man who had fine houses in town and country, gold and silver plate, embroidered furniture, and coaches gilt all over. But unfortunately, this man had a blue beard, which made him look so ugly and terrible that there was not a woman or girl who did not run away from him. Okay, so this is not about Bluebeard the pirate, apparently. Okay, that's I was like, hey, a pirate story. And okay, apparently it's not. He's just, unfortunately, has a blue beard. ASMR coffee slurps. Oh, is there a market for that? Watch the members roll out. One of his neighbors, a lady of rank, had 2 daughters who were perfectly beautiful. He proposed to marry one of them, leaving the mother to choose which of the 2 she would give him. Neither of the daughters, however, would have him, and they sent him from one to the other, each being unable to make up her mind to marry a man with a blue beard. A further reason which they had for disliking him was that he had already been married several times, and nobody knew what had become of his wives. Now that's more problematic than having a blue beard. That's very problematic. That should be the first thing that people are talking about, not being like, well, his beard is kind of blue, so I'll pass. No, it should be the dude's been married several times, all of them have gone missing, and no one knows where the bodies are. I think that's a little more. That should be at the top of your warning signs. A further reason which they had for disliking him was that he had already been married several times and nobody knew what had become of his wives. Bluebeard, in order to improve the acquaintance, took the girls with their mother, 3 or 4 of their most intimate friends, and some other young people who resided in the neighborhood to one of his country seats, where they spent an entire week. They would be mad to go there. Nothing was thought of but excursions, hunting and fishing parties, balls, entertainments, suppers. Nobody went to bed. The whole night was passed in games and playing merry tricks on one another. In short, all went off so well that the youngest daughter began to think that the beard of the master of the house was not so blue as it used to be, and that he was a very worthy man. Immediately upon their return to town, the marriage took place. At the end of a month, Bluebeard told his wife that he was obliged to take a journey which would keep him away from home for 6 weeks at least, as he had business of great importance to attend to. He begged her to amuse herself as well as she could during his absence, to invite her best friends, and if she liked, take them into the country, and wherever she was to have the best of everything for the table. "Here," he said to her, "are the keys of my 2 large storerooms. These are those of the chests in which the gold and silver plate, not in general use, is kept. These are the keys of the strong boxes in which I keep my money. These open the caskets that contain my jewels, and this is the master key of all the rooms. As for this little key, it is that of the closet at the end of the long gallery on the ground floor. Open everything, and you go everywhere except into that little closet, which I forbid you to enter. And I forbid you so strictly that if you should venture to open the door, there is nothing that you may not have to dread from my anger." Okay, but he's even giving her the key for that. Okay, that's terrible. Okay. "Here's the key to this door which you must never open." She promised to obey his orders to the letter, and after having embraced her, he got into his coach and set out on his journey. The friends and neighbors of the young bride did not wait for her invitation, so eager were they to see all the rich treasures in the house, and not having ventured to visit her while her husband was at home, so frightened were they at his blue beard. They were soon seen to be running through all the rooms and into the closets and wardrobes, each one more beautiful and splendid than the last. Then they went upstairs to the storerooms. There they could not sufficiently express their admiration at the number and beauty of the hangings, the beds, the sofas, the cabinets, the elegant little stands, the tables, the mirrors in which they could see themselves from head to foot, framed, some with glass, some with silver, some with gilt metal, all of a costliness beyond what had ever before been seen. They never ceased enlarging upon and envying the good fortune of their friend, who, meanwhile, took no pleasure in the sight of all these treasures, so great was her longing to go and open the door of the closet on the ground floor. Her curiosity at last reached such a pitch that, without stopping to consider how rude it was to leave her guests, she ran down a little back staircase leading to the closet, and in such haste that she nearly broke her neck 2 or 3 times before reaching the bottom. At the door of the closet she paused for a moment, calling to mind her husband's prohibition, and reflecting that some trouble might fall upon her for her disobedience. It's up there, striped sweater, yeah. Good morning. Some trouble might fall upon her for her disobedience. But the temptation was so strong that she could not resist it. She took the little key, and with a trembling hand opened the door of the closet. At first she could distinguish nothing, for the windows were closed. In a few minutes, however, she began to see that the floor was covered with blood, in which was reflected the bodies of several dead women hanging on the walls. These were all the wives of Bluebeard, who had killed them one after another. This fairy tale is getting dark. She was ready to die with fright, and the key which she had taken out of the lock fell from her hand. After recovering her senses a little, she picked up the key, locked the door again, and went up to her room to try and compose herself, but she found it impossible to quiet her agitation. She now perceived that the key of the closet was stained with blood. She wiped it 2 or 3 times, but the blood would not come off. In vain she washed it, and even scrubbed it with sand and freestone. The stain was still there, for the key was an enchanted one, and there was no means of cleaning it completely. When the blood was washed off one side, it came back on the other. Bluebeard returned that very evening, and said that he had received letters on the road telling him that the business on which he had been going to had been settled to his advantage. His wife did all she could to make him believe that she was delighted at his speedy return. The next morning he asked her for his keys again. She gave them to him, but her hand trembled so that he had not much difficulty in guessing what had happened. "How comes it," said he, "that the key of the closet is not with the others?" "Oh, I must have left it," she replied, "upstairs on my table." "Fail not," said Bluebeard, "to give it to me presently." After several excuses, she was obliged to go and fetch the key. Bluebeard, having examined it, said to his wife, "Why is there blood on this key?" "I don't know," answered the poor wife, paler than death. "You don't know?" rejoined Bluebeard. "I know well enough. You must needs go into the closet. Well, madam, you shall go in again and take your place among the ladies you saw there." She flung herself at her husband's feet, weeping and begging his pardon, with all the signs of a true repentance at having disobeyed him. Her beauty and sorrow might have melted a rock, but Bluebeard had a heart harder than rock. "You must die, madam," said he, "and at once." "If I must die," she replied, looking at him with streaming eyes, "give me a little time to say my prayers." "I give you half a quarter of an hour," answered Bluebeard. "Not 1 minute more. Half of a quarter of an hour, so like 7.5 minutes. As soon as she found herself alone, she called her sister. What, on the phone, or what? How'd she call her sister? Okay, we will just go with it. As soon as she found herself alone, she called her sister and said to her, "Sister Anne," for so she was named, "go up, I pray you, to the top of the tower and see if my brothers are not in sight. They promised me they would come to visit me today, and if you see them, sign to them to make haste." Sister Anne mounted to the top of the tower, and the poor unhappy wife called to her from time to time. "Anne, Sister Anne, do you not see anything coming?" And Sister Anne answered, "I see nothing but the dust turning gold in the sun and the grass growing green." Meanwhile, Bluebeard, with a large cutlass in his hand, maybe he is a pirate after all, called out with all his might to his wife, "Come down quickly, or I shall come up there." 1 minute more, if you please," replied his wife, and then said quickly in a low voice, "And Sister Anne, do you not see anything coming?" And Sister Anne answered, "Oh, I see nothing but the dust turning gold in the sun and the grass growing green." "Come down quickly," roared Bluebeard, "or I shall come up there." "I'm coming," answered his wife, and then called, "And Sister Anne, do you not see anything coming?" "Oh, I see a great cloud of dust moving this way," said Sister Anne. "Is it my brothers?" "Alas, no, sister, only a flock of sheep." "Will you not come down?" shouted Bluebeard. 1 minute more," replied his wife, and then she cried, "Anne, Sister Anne, do you not see anything coming?" "I see 2 horsemen coming this way," she replied, "but they are still a great distance off." "Oh, heaven be praised!" she exclaimed a moment afterwards. "They are my brothers. I'm making all the signs I can to hasten them." Bluebeard began to roar so loudly that the whole house shook again. The poor wife went down and threw herself at his feet with weeping eyes and disheveled hair. "Oh, it's no use," said Bluebeard. "You must die." Then taking her by the hair with one hand and raising the cutlass with the other, he was about to cut off her head. The poor wife, turning towards him her dying eyes, begged him to give her one short moment to collect herself. "No, no," he said, "commend yourself to heaven." And lifting his arm... At this moment there was such a loud knocking at the gate that Bluebeard stopped short. It was opened, and 2 horsemen were immediately seen to enter, who, drawing their swords, ran straight at Bluebeard. He recognized them as the brothers of his wife, one a dragoon, the other a musketeer, and he therefore fled at once, hoping to escape, but they pursued him so closely that they overtook him before he could reach the steps to his door, and running their swords through his body, left him dead on the spot. The poor wife was almost as dead as her husband, and had not the strength to rise and embrace her brothers. It was found that Bluebeard had left no heirs, and so his widow came into possession of all his property. She employed part of it in marrying her sister Anne to a man who had long loved her, another part in buying captain's commissions for her 2 brothers, and with the remainder she married herself to a very worthy man, who made her forget the dreadful time she had passed with Bluebeard. That was terrible. All right. That was, okay. That was, I don't know, just, you know, sometimes the stories just aren't good. Here we are. That was one of them. That was, okay. I know it's supposed to be a children's story, but what kind of a children's story is that? I don't know. I don't know. Going chopping off people's heads, running them. I mean, there's no. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I mean, but okay. If you knew, but you know, I get it happens in real life. I know. I mean, if you knew that someone who had several wives before, all the wives had gone missing under mysterious circumstances and the bodies never found. That's one of those things that it's just, you don't need spider sense to know that something is a little off. That's all I'm saying. You don't need some supernatural abilities. That's that's right. That was the other big thing. Yeah, it was all about the color of his beard. That's weird. He's got a blue beard. Can't marry him. Oh yeah, he does have like several missing wives, probably brutally murdered, strung up in his closet beneath the house. I could live with that, but I don't know. Waking up to a blue beard every morning, I don't know. But that's where we're at, and that's that's as far as we can go. 2 minutes to 4 p.m. All right. I got to take care of a few things. Got to take care of a few things here. IRL. We'll be back. We'll be back in 2 hours. 2 hours with movie night. Maybe you should try it, Chris Alberti. Do you have a big scruffy beard growing out right now? I know you let it grow and then shave it off from time to time. Bluebeard, okay. Dead bodies, no. Yeah, well, this story had it backward. Tillable Cat says, so why did he kill the first wife? Not because she saw the dead wives. I don't know. Maybe that was where he hid his real doll. That's all I can imagine. He was so humiliated when his wife found it that, okay, off with her head. That's the best I can come up with an origin story. I'm just gonna roll with that. But anyway, let us call it. That's it. I gotta end the stream. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. I hope you've also had some time to get some mother time in as well, being Mother's Day. Yeah, I wasn't able to find any suitable Mother's Day stuff that we could read. Yeah, so sometimes themed days, I do like to try finding something good and material for them, but I don't know. This day and Father's Day, I've never really had any luck finding suitable stuff. His waifu pillow, that's probably what it was. Yeah, his waifu pillow was, that's where he hid it, and there, and the first wife found it. Movie night, yes, movie night. So I'm going to be back in 2 hours. In 2 hours, we're going to sit there. We're going to watch A Farewell to Arms, the Ernest Hemingway movie with Gary Cooper and Helen Hayes. It should be pretty fun. It'll be cool. We'll have a good time watching that. And then we'll have a little bit of gaming. Nothing too crazy late. I've got to get some good Z's, so because we've got book club in the morning. I don't know what I'm going to be playing tonight. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Tomorrow's Halo. Tomorrow's going to be a big Halo day. I might take a look at. I don't know. We'll figure. I'm not playing Pac-Man. Not touching that thing again. Good Lord. All right. Anyway, so there's probably a couple who weren't here last night. Yeah, we had a Pac-Man the Pac-Man tournament last night. The Pac-Man tournament. So prizes handed out to anyone who could beat me. Everyone who entered were able to beat me. How does that happen? I don't know. It was fun though. It was fun. Yeah. So I've already sent SoCal Aussie. Already sent him the Xbox gift card code. Chris Alberti. Just because of the way Steam works. I had to add him to my friends list, and then there's like a 3-day cooldown before you can send anything. So yeah, Chris Alberti, he gets to wait another 3 days until he can get his. But I'll be sending him a Steam card. Tomorrow's going to be mainly Halo 5, maybe some MCC, maybe some Halo Wars 2. If it's Halo, we're going to try it. Yeah, we're going to do that. I like me some Halos. And the winners are Kings for a... Wow, this deal gets worse and worse all the time, Tillable Cat. I don't know about that. I don't know. All right. But in the meantime, I got to go. Thank you for spending your afternoon with me. And I hope you've enjoyed the stories. Some of them silly as they are. We can just have a good laugh about some of them, I guess. But there we go. Thank you, lady. Oh yeah. Oh no. The overlay for the credit thing is still broken. But yeah, anyway, thank you for my wonderful moderators here. We got SoCal Aussie, Lady Death, thank you. Often, most times they don't even need to do anything. They just intimidate people into behaving well. They walk in, crack their knuckles a little bit, and everyone's just like, okay, we'd be cool. But but thank you everyone for spending some time with us here. We got Skip and Tillable Cat and Oregon, Striped Sweater. Always nice to see you. Mrs. Shadowtronics, of course. I think Mrs. Shadowtronics shows up more than Shadowtronics these about now. Things that Chris Alberti, of course, the reigning Pac-Man champ, up there with SoCal Aussie, Nana Shuffle. Did I miss anyone? Wilden, is it Wilden or Wilden? It's Wilden, and Immortal Chara. Oh, sorry, I didn't see Immortal Chara pop on in. Immortal Chara was and so Velociraptor's here as well. Okay, I probably missed a few names here. Skate Park Jimmy. Yeah. It is cool. Only cool peeps allowed, Nana Shuffle. Only cool peeps allowed. All of you are vetted before you're allowed to come into the channel. Before you even get here, we've all done the research to make sure only cool peeps land here. Yeah, and that's exactly how it is. But anyway, I'll be back. I'll be back in 2 hours. Let me. Do you have an interesting? Oh, he's ending his thing soon. Who would it be? Oh, what's Virus doing? What? There we go. I'm gonna throw you over to Virus. He's doing some retro stuff there. We'll be back, and we'll catch you all later. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, movie night. 2 hours from now.